We already knew Dequan Finn may be the most important player on this Baylor team, but here's why he might be one of the most important players in the entire Big 12 conference on Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Ultimate GM, and I am your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. Really appreciate you guys making this your first listen today and every day. We already know Dequan Finn is the starting quarterback, but just how important is he to this team? It could even be a couple of wins. Seriously, it might be. And one of the great Baylor traditions of the last 10 years is back. And I'm really happy it's back. And we're going to tell you who has the single-digit numbers for the year. And there is a unit on this Baylor football team that Dave Aranda wishes was a little bit closer to game ready. We're going to tell you what that is coming up in the show. First off, we are just over a week away from Baylor's first game, kicking off against Tarleton State, and they just named this week their starting quarterback is Dequan Finn rather than Sawyer Robertson. And we all know how important quarterback is in today's day and age in football, right? I mean, at any level. And Dequan Finn, when we were talking about him looking at Baylor and possibly transferring to Baylor, I was the one saying, Baylor needs to fill a lot of spots, but there's one position that can instantly make you better or worse, and that is quarterback. That's the only position where there is one guy that can define how good your team can be. A really good team with a bang average quarterback has a ceiling, and a good team and a okay team with a great quarterback has a much higher ceiling. Ask Auburn when Cam Newton was there, and it's still true today in college football. Where would Washington have been without Michael Penix? You know what I mean? Or Oregon without Bo Nix last year. The quarterback is the only singular position on the field that can raise the bar of a team. And I was really happy when Dequan Finn decided to transfer to Baylor. And I'm happy that he is the starter. He's a guy I believe in, and clearly the coaches do too. I think he makes Baylor better immediately. That's what I said in the show the other day. That was the title of the show, I think. He makes Baylor immediately better. My colleague and host of the Matt Mosley Show on ESPN Central Texas, Matt Mosley, had me on his podcast the other day, and it was Mosley who put out the claim of just how important Dequan Finn is to this Baylor football team.
Baylor's best hope is not Dave Aranda calling some great plays. Baylor's best hope is us getting to the end of this season and being able to say that Dequan Finn was a top 3 quarterback in the Big 12. And I am not completely ruling that out. I am going to say that Dequan Finn is the biggest X factor in the Big 12. So there you go. I think he is the number one. I think he is the number one X factor in the Big 12. And he will be the biggest difference between either a 4-win season or a 7 to 8 win season.
Love Mosley or hate Mosley, he's not a crazy take guy. He's not someone who's just like, hey, I'm going to throw this take out there and watch the carnage happen. He's not that. And I half agree with him here. And I said as much in the Obstructed View Podcast brought to you by Rogue Media Sports Network, which you should check out. But I don't think there's any world where Dequan Finn is a top 3 quarterback in the Big 12. That's because the Big 12 is loaded at that position this year. But then again, I think he is good enough to make Baylor a few wins better. And in this case, 3 or 4 or 5 wins better. Yeah, I think he's a part of that. I do. I think a good Dequan Finn season should lead Baylor to bowl eligibility. But I looking up and down the quarterbacks in this conference, I don't see a way where Dequan Finn is a top 3. And that's no knock against Dequan. It's not. I look at and I see Fafita and Rising and Shador Sanders and even some of those middle class guys like the Rocco Becht or the Avery Johnson, whatever you get out of him, KJ Jefferson maybe in the upper middle class there. It's just tough to rise above that many quality guys, and specifically those 3 or 4 guys at the top being Fafita and Rising and Sanders. And, you could throw Garrett Green in there towards the top in the upper middle class. KJ Jefferson, like I mentioned. There's a lot of guys that are going to be battling for those all Big 12 spots. And even if Dequan Finn is at his best, I don't know that he cracks necessarily that top 3. But if he's at his best, he would be pretty good. And that would make Baylor, I think, in the comfort zone of being a bowl team, which would be 7 or 8 wins rather than 6. I do believe in that from Mosley. And to that end, maybe his point is right that he is the biggest X factor in the conference. Because we're talking about if this team is a 4-win team rather than a 6 or 7 or 8 win team, that is a bigger difference for Baylor than it is for damn near anyone else in the conference, because that would mean the coach is fired. If they're a 4-win team, the coach is fired, and the best recruiting class you've had in a long time is up in limbo. So Dequan Finn, yeah, he is crucial to this team, not just this year, but perhaps the short term and maybe even long-term future of this program. We say it with the NFL all the time, and it rings true with college football. If the quarterback's good, nobody cares how good the coach is. We might never know how good a coach Tony Dungy was because he had Peyton Manning for so long. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. None of the recruiting or the coaching staff or any of the internal politics within a program, none of it matters if the quarterback is good. And that's how important Dequan Finn is for this team and for this very, very crucial season for Baylor football. We used to look longingly at these other programs and see the quarterbacks they had and wish they had that, but now we got Dequan Finn, so we don't need to see that. But we are seeing everyone take their dream vacations and wondering, when is that going to be my turn? When am I going to be able to save up and have a trip like that I'm seeing all over Instagram? Well, the first step is to get Ibata. Ibata is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. You can earn on hundreds of items, groceries, beauty supplies, things you buy every day. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average user is earning over $250 a year. Think of all that could cover. The football games, a cheap flight, a fancy dinner. All of those things can be covered just by the average amount that you're getting per year. You're saving on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, also Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, so much more. It's time you joined the over 50 million users who use Ibata to earn cash back every time they shop. Right now, Ibata is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibata and by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play and download the free Ibata app to start earning cash back and use the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA, Ibata, in the Google Play or App Store. And then, of course, that code is LOCKEDONCollege. Dequan Finn has been the topic of discussion for this Baylor football team as we are just over a week out for the schedule, and kind of a silent drop earlier this week. But one of my favorite traditions of my time being a Baylor fan has come back. It's a relatively, recent tradition, as in within the last 7 years. It would have started in 2017. It started with Matt Rule, and that is the single-digit numbers. Now, for those of you who don't know, or you're new to the podcast, new to the team, the single digits were given to the 10 toughest guys on the team. it was the ones who had the toughness, who had the hard work, the dedication. It was more or less like being a captain if you could have 10 of them instead of 4 or whatever it is. And that was something that Matt Rule brought with him from Temple. And it was something that the players would vote on to say, these are our 10 guys, and they would get the single digits. Now, offensive line cannot do single digits. And I thought interior defensive line, but I think all defensive line can. I think it's only offensive line that can't do it. I might be wrong in that, but I don't think I am. I think I'm right. That only the offensive line can't. So you can't have those guys. But it was something that was this badge of honor around Baylor football. And it seemed cheesy to some, but I think like the players really bought into it and really loved earning that single digit number. It wasn't until Charlie Brewer's last year that he earned it. And he like talked about that was an honor to be able to switch from his normal number 12 to number 5 because he earned that. And you see it as like the maturation of some of these great players. Terrell Bernard was 26, and then he was number 2. Clay Johnston, 44 to 4. Jalen Petrie, 24 to 8. Gavin Holmes, who was, went through two different ACL tears and all these setbacks in his career. Well, his final year, he got to wear number 6 because he earned that. And it really does kind of signify a Baylor player becoming, a legend might be too big a term, but one of the real revered guys on his team. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, it was always cool at the beginning of the season to see who was going to get that. Like Isaac Power, the punter, getting number 1 a few years ago. I thought that was cool. And I think at least last year, maybe even the year before, that tradition was done away with. Guys who had the numbers could hold on to them. I think of like Matt Jones was number 2. Bryson Jackson was number 7. He got to hold on to that. TJ Franklin was number 9. And but it wasn't given out the same way it was, and did not have the same status symbol around it. Well, that's all going to change because the single digit numbers are back as if they never left. And we got the announcement this week of who those guys are going to be. And that is Jackie Marshall in the defensive line wearing number 0, which is cool as hell. Okay, I'm just going to say that. Wearing number 0 is pretty sick. Squirrel Williams, I think, was the first one to do it. Number 0, very cool. Very cool. Michael Trigg, the transfer tight end who's on his 3rd stop, USC to Ole Miss to Baylor. He's wearing number 1. Matt Jones, the Permian legend and now Baylor legend linebacker, is keeping number 2. He's earned that right to keep that number and will obviously be one of the most integral parts of this team. Devin Bobby, suddenly one of the old guys on the team. The safety is wearing number 3. Another guy who's suddenly old. It's going to make you feel old. Senior wide receiver Monterey Baldwin is wearing number 4. My word, that kid was a true freshman when he was running the jet sweep for the touchdown in the Sugar Bowl. It shows you how long that's been. He's now a senior and earning the single-digit number. Garmin Randolph, another guy who's been around the program a few years, number 5. Garmin Randolph. We're talking about this on the Mosley show, actually, since I've already referenced Mosley a few times in this program. But he made up a good point. Garmin Randolph was almost off this team. There was a suspension there. There were some rumors going around. And not only has he stuck around, but he has now earned the right to wear a single-digit number. And there's a couple of those guys in the Dave Aranda years. You'll remember Treston Ebner and John Lovett, like they quit the team, just outright quit the team after a game in 2020. And Treston Ebner came back. I think they both came back, but Ebner played again and played a whole nother year and was an integral part of that 2021 team. Single-digit number guy, by the way. So good to see Garmin Randolph still with this team and now in a leadership position. That shows some good things. Transfer wide receiver from Texas State, Ashton Hawkins, wearing number 6. Talk about a guy making an impact right away. We've already got 2 guys who transferred in this year, and the next number will be the 3rd guy who transferred in this year, and that is quarterback Dequan Finn. We talked about his importance to this team and to this conference, but nothing more important than earning that single-digit number 7, which is what he wore at Toledo. He was wearing 12 throughout camp and for the media days and such. But number 7 is the number he goes with. And I've seen plenty of people. I'm a weird like numbers guy, big time jersey number guy, as well as a uniform guy. There are just some numbers I hate and they make me sick and I don't like seeing them and I wouldn't ever wear them. But I am seeing some other number sickos on my Twitter timeline because they're talking about the same thought that I had, which is number 7's a good quarterback number. That's a nice quarterback number. Then again, the number he had before, 12, is probably the best quarterback number ever when you consider the guys who wore it. But number 7, that's a good-looking number for a quarterback, especially a mobile quarterback who's a dude, and Dequan Finn might just be that. How about the youngest guy with the single-digit number, Caden Jenkins, only a sophomore, as Keith Jackson would say. The cornerback gets number 8, loaded number in Baylor football lore. Because of the single-digit thing and the fact that it was Jalen Petre's number. That is a loaded jersey number for a defensive back, especially. But Caden Jenkins, you want to talk about a guy who clearly is not getting complacent with being a pretty good freshman receiver. That's a position, or excuse me, cornerback. That is a position that is typically filled with prima donnas and guys who can get complacent. Caden Jenkins, at least based off this, has not. He's getting a single-digit number. And then the Hawaiian, Trevin May, wearing number 9 on the defensive line. So those are your single-digit numbers. I don't know about you guys. I've heard some people tell me they think it's a cheesy thing and that it doesn't mean anything. I beg to differ. Because I look at some of these examples and there's nary a guy, since this has become a tradition at Baylor, there has been nary a guy who wore a single digit and did not make an impact on the field that even the most casual fans could see on Saturdays. Obviously, a lot of this is also going into their presence in the locker room as well. But there has not been one that I can think of that had a single digit number and did not show an impact on the field. Like truly. Gavin Holmes is the example I used earlier. You barely saw him on the field for the first couple years of his career. It was sad. It stunk. And then he had that single-digit number, and he was healthy, and he was out there making big plays. Treston Ebner, you didn't know what his role was going to be when he came back for another year because he had quit the team the year before, gets the number 1, and he is a huge part of that offense. How about one of his running mates, okay? Because we didn't know a lot about Abram Smith. He was a guy who was a linebacker that was converted to running back out of pure necessity. He switches from number 28 to number 7. And you're like, wow, he must be a pretty good locker room guy because we barely seen this guy on the field. He's got number 7. And he has one of the best single seasons in Baylor football history at any position, but definitely at the running back position. So, yeah, there is a certain je ne sais quoi that comes with wearing a single-digit number. A certain way you walk, I would say, with that single-digit number on. So I'm glad it's back, and congratulations to all the guys that are getting those numbers. Dave Aranda talked after the scrimmage over the weekend about the units he thinks are ready and those he thinks are not ready. We'll talk about that coming up on Locked On Baylor. But first, I got to tell you about one of our new sponsors, and that is Ultimate College Football Head Coach and a proud sponsor of today's video. I want to take a moment, give you a heads up. This is brand new mobile game. I think you guys are going to love it just as much as I do. Okay. In this game, you get to step into the shoes of Dave Aranda and lead your college football program to glory. It's tough to criticize him until you step in his shoes. Could you imagine actually being Dave Aranda out there? That'd be a ton of fun. You're recruiting players, hiring coaching staff, overseeing the training camps, and handling scholarships. You control every crucial detail of the program. It's all in your hands. And here's what I really love about the game is that you're responsible for calling the plays on offense. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but it's going to shape the future and the legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, we got a special offer for you guys, okay? Use the promo code LOCKEDON CFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program, which better be Baylor. Make sure to take advantage of this perk and get your team off to a strong start. So download the game. You visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up in the app stores. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Begin your coaching legacy today. Baylor had its second and final scrimmage of the fall camp over the weekend, and Dave Aranda had a quote in there that kind of surprised me about the unit that has not gotten off to the quick start. And also, he kind of alluded to or made reference to some of the themes I mentioned in one of the shows last week. And that theme would be things we couldn't talk about during 2023. But now that we're close to 2024, we could talk about it as it regards to the 2023 team. I'll explain to you what I mean. I don't mean to have one of these really messy answers like Dave usually does. Here's a more direct answer from Dave.
We're a talented team. We're a hungry team. The care factor on this team is very strong. I feel offensively, we're right on schedule. Defensively, I wish we would have played better in the first half. I'm proud of how we played in the second half. I'm excited about what this team can do. There's an edge to this team, and it's good to have edge and not have to talk about edge.
Okay, because you get it about the offense and the defense, right? Usually that's the other way around. Usually it's the offense that needs to catch up. The defense is a little bit easier to hit the ground running with, especially with this team, which is returning a lot of starters on defense and kept your defensive coaches there and had the head coach as the new play caller. So maybe that means that Dave just has a high bar for this team, a high standard that they're not meeting yet. But that was interesting to me because it's almost always the other way around, that it's the offense that's falling behind. But maybe that's a good sign that Spavital has come in. It's a fun offense, and they're hitting the ground running with it. The other thing that he said in there was about the edge, right? He says we got a talented team, a hungry team, and we've got a team with edge. And it's nice to see the edge rather than just talking about the edge. Because that's something Dave talked about all year last year. We got to play with an edge. We got to play green. And I didn't think we were playing green. I thought we were playing, kind of a Boston Celtics green, but not really the Art Briles Baylor football era green. And, it just became this level of green. And it was every week saying we need to do that, not we are doing that. And that, again, brings me back to my point that I made in that show last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, about those are things we couldn't say during the season. We were chastised for saying things like that. Really, Dave? There's an edge? I don't see an edge. But now that it's really close to the 2024 season, we can agree there wasn't an edge. It was a team that didn't look like they wanted to play a lot of the time. And now we can admit that. And I feel for these guys because there's no doubt they want to go out there and play football. There's sacrificing a lot of their time and sacrificing their health to go out there and play football every day, not just on Saturdays. So it's just kind of funny that comes up again. Like, nothing is proven until we see it out there on Saturdays. I'll just say that. I hope he's right. That's the thing, is I'm seeing this at face value and hoping that all these things are correct, but we just don't know if there's an edge until we go out there and watch them play with an edge. Because we also heard all last year how great the practices were. So maybe a little bit more honesty in terms of the defense isn't where we need it to be. At least you have some veteran guys there that hopefully that turns around quickly. And the sound of the offense doing well makes me do well. Makes me feel good. How does it make you feel? Drop that down in the comments below. Get involved in the comment section. Let me know what you think about how important Dequan Finn is, or if you're saying, hey, Gary Bohannon was no Heisman finalist in 2021, and we still did pretty well. Drop that down in the comments below, how important you think this quarterback position is for this team. And do you think the single digits number thing is cheesy? I don't think it is. There needs to be some sort of cheese still in college football like that, if you ask me. So if it is cheesy, then fine. We need some of that. Drop that down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell to get notified every time we're dropping an episode here on YouTube. You can also find all of our episodes free wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. I have a feeling we're going to have another team preview tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.